All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, April 15th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is All in Horns. We're going to be talking Texas football, spring football, and kind of what some of the practice reports have been sharing with us, and then one major transfer, or really cutting, I guess. It's not even a transfer at this point, that has just shooketh the entire college football landscape, and hopefully not a sign of things to come. I'm hoping this tears his reputation and his want from other teams down so far that he may not even see Division I football. I doubt that'll happen, but the news of the redshirt freshman phenom at Tennessee, the quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, is reportedly, or not reportedly, is no longer with the Tennessee Volunteers. He was released from the program due to NIL disputes, essentially just not getting the money that he thinks that he has earned, and that he has warranted a pay increase of NIL deals. And they said, all right, well, if you're not going to participate in team meetings, if you're not going to participate in film sessions, if you're not going to participate in practice, which he was not doing any of those for the last couple of days, you're off the team. Good job by Coach Heupel for handling that situation the correct way. But Jake, let's just go ahead and start there, man. I think that's the big news of this offseason so far, with that transfer, that decision, the reasoning behind it. I'm really hoping this is not the direction college athletics is going into.
Yeah, and now he will be known as Nico Iamaleava.
I like that. I like that.
There we go. Had to open up with the little zinger. First off, what's incredible about this to me is he wasn't that good last year. I thought he was kind of a disappointment for what he was expected to be. Tennessee had one of the better defenses in the country, and were good. I mean, they made the playoffs, but had a very disappointing offense, to say the least, especially for Josh Heupel.
They scored 85 against Kent State in week 2.
Yeah, they had some great games against some awful teams, and he ended the year with 19 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, and was putrid in a lot of. I mean, he's 14 of 31 against Ohio State. He only, I believe, in their top 4 SEC games of the year, the 4 best SEC teams they played, I think he had a total of 4 touchdown passes. The vast majority of his touchdown passes came against Vanderbilt, UTEP, and the Chattanooga game. Were 4, 8, 11 of his 19 touchdowns came in those 3 games.
Wow.
And then Mississippi State, another 2, and NC State, another 2. So 15 of his 19 touchdown passes came in those 5 games that were against some of the worst opponents they played in the year.
Yeah.
He was not good against top competition. The games they lost, like the Arkansas game, for instance, was because of the offense. So, and he was already supposedly at about a $2 to $2.5 million NIL package. He wanted more towards 4. I'm not sure what he thought he had done or I think this is a case of maybe where it's not him, it's the people telling him things in his group. Yep. And I think Tennessee handled this perfectly.
And Arch Manning is the last of the top 100 of his draft class, or I'm sorry, of his recruiting class, to not transfer. And, it's funny because I'm pretty sure the only player everyone talked about transferring from that quarterback class was Arch Manning.
Yeah, I had a lot of bookmark tweets about that I visited during the week. And at least gave a little favorite just so they knew I was there. I was lurking in the shadows. I didn't respond or quote tweet everyone, but just a little nudge of like, hey buddy, remember you're really dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm dumb too, but like that when you make and this goes for, I'm sure I'm guilty of it plenty of times. You can go through my history, especially the further back you go, the dumber I am. And when you make a comment on something that you have no knowledge of from insiders, you're probably dumb, because everyone knew the plan was always for Arch to sit behind Quinn for at minimum 1 year with the possibility of 2, and then to likely play 2 years.
Right.
Because now the goalposts have moved to, well, Arch is one and done.
Yeah.
And there's a chance of that. I'm not going to say there's no chance. They win a national championship. He wins I would find it hard to believe he'd stay after that. But there's a vast higher chance, in my opinion, that he will be here with the Longhorn program for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say 3 is impossible, but I think 2 and done is the most likely scenario as far as 2 playing on the field. So yeah, very funny that he ends up being the last one. But yeah, I
think transfer.
I think
doubt that he does.
Nico's gonna find a place to play. Also, what is it with people named Nico? No one name your son Nico. The Mavs GM, and now you have this.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just
the tribute video to Luka. Where
tough year for Nico's, but someone's gonna pick him up in the portal and pay him way too much money. Maybe a Texas Tech.
Nico.
I think at Texas Tech could jump in on this.
What's funny, Jake, is I immediately went to the Big 12. That was my first. I thought Baylor immediately. I thought
Tech's got the money to do it and to overpay for someone. And
yeah, I thought Texas Tech. I thought Oklahoma State almost immediately. And
this is the type of thing that hurts your draft stock unless you are just too good for it to.
And he's not. And
he hasn't been.
Well, but Jake, and I was going to ask you, what program would be willing to take a chance on a player like this? What about Colorado? What about Coach Dion?
Colorado makes sense. I think the biggest non-Big 12 program I would throw out there is probably a USC. I could see them going down this road. I don't know what their current plans are at quarterback, but
Oregon
maybe, but that would be messed up, because allegedly Dan Lanning is the one who contacted Josh Heupel, and this is alleged. But and typically alleged stories that come from reliable insiders typically end up being correct
when there's smoke.
And yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire. Supposedly Dan Lanning is the one who kind of tipped Josh Heupel that Nico was shopping around behind Tennessee's back, and then went to Tennessee asking for more. And I'm glad Tennessee handled it the way they did to make it public, because I'm not for shaming, but sometimes shaming is necessary. And this isn't the players, he was making millions.
Yeah.
And didn't really play that good last year and wanted more millions, and then tried to hold the school hostage essentially, and then stopped showing up to practice days before their spring game.
So
their spring game was this weekend. It was like 2 days before the spring game. This all happened.
So that's my thing is, the moment you isolate yourself from the team, you're no longer part of the team, period. Football, more than almost any other sport out there,
especially for selfish reasons. This wasn't a personal problems or something. This was I want more money despite not really deserving more money situation.
But when you isolate yourself on a football team, more than any other sport, it feels like football has this brotherhood. And not only that, you're the quarterback. The quarterback has an unspoken leadership over the rest of the team, and a higher responsibility to the team to put in more hours in the film room, to be more prepared, to be a leader, to run the locker room, to set an example. As a quarterback, when you have those responsibilities and you just don't show up to team activities, and you're not part of the team, and you're not watching film, and you're not in meetings, and you're not at practice, you're not on the team anymore. You're just not on the team anymore. So bye. See you later. Like, it's not a skilled wide receiver. It's not a skilled defensive back. It's not a skill position guy. It's your quarterback. It's a big deal. And the sooner you can cut that cancer out of the team body, I think it allows your team to heal much faster to get rid of that. And so, like I said, kudos to Coach Heupel and the way that he handled this situation. Kudos to Tennessee for not letting it or for letting it get out that, hey, he left for NIL purposes, for money purposes, not because of anything else. That whatever him and his team may want to try to come out and say, that's completely false. It was strictly money.
Yeah, and you have inside sources that back that up as well. So it's not just the school saying it.
Yeah.
It's reliable information. And then the dad just looking like a clown as well. Just have to, he has now been community noted on X, the Everything app. Everything goes on X. And that was a day before Nico decided to stop going to practice, as reports started to come out. He said more games being played off the field than on the field. Expletive that starts with a B. Nikos from On3 Sports, so name's a journalist, doesn't tag him because he's too cowardly and knew he was lying. From On3 Sports called and asked me directly. I told him I had no idea on what he was talking about. He said his close source that he trusts with his life from the University of the Tennessee staff gave him the info. And that it wasn't true. And if it doesn't come from them, it's not true. Then Nico skipped practice. Then Nico was off the team 2 days later.
Yeah.
And now has been community noted, basically saying Pete Nikos, who is a very reliable reporter from On3, initial report was correct. And if that should be, he should be able to get sued just for saying that and then just being completely wrong and immediately. And I don't think he's posted since then. Which makes you think that again, is it the player? The player still is at fault. He's a grown adult. You can make your own decisions. Being a college student is not an excuse to it. You can make dumb decisions and grow from them, but this is a very big mistake from him. It's going to hurt him with his chances to go higher in the NFL draft, even if he has a good year at a different program. This is always going to be brought up with him.
Yep. No, 100%, Jake. I'm right there with you. All right, Jake, let's go ahead and flip the script. Let's talk some Texas football for you. We promised the people we would. Let's go ahead and do it. Spring practices have been going well. Some notes of reports that have come out from the defense and from the offensive line. Jake, where would you like to start?
I'm gonna start with the offensive line.
Okay, let's start there.
Just the reports continue to trickle out about DJ Campbell. One person even saying best player on the offense in the scrimmage specifically. Just supposedly,
that does make sense, Jake. I don't mean to cut you off. It does make sense because you and I, we've had conversations too about on the offense and defensive line. You can't really take a practice off. You can't really just be like, I'm going to half-ass this practice, because the guy in front of you is going to kick your ass and make you look really bad because the guy in front of you is fighting for a spot. So offense and defensive line, you probably get your best feel for what those players really are in practice more than any other position.
Yeah. And I just think, hearing reports that the offensive line is looking good, especially for being 4 new starters. Gooseby is looking every bit of the part of being a replacement for Banks, that you're not going to have a huge drop off, which is crazy to say. Hudson is supposedly looking very comfortable at center. And then you got DJ Campbell at right guard. Neto continues to improve and look, especially run blocking, every bit of the part. Then I think Brandon Baker is the lead to start at right tackle right now. And so just hearing the positive things about the offensive line, but still hearing that the defensive line is disruptive and causing issues. I know Cole Brevard had a good day. They've really liked what they've seen out of Travis Shaw. Alex January, I've seen his name mentioned. I haven't seen much on Justice Terry. I'd be curious to hear specifically on him, how he's doing in full pads. But I do think the growing pains, regardless of how talented you are as a freshman in the spring, I think come summertime, he's going to be in a good spot by being able to compete in the spring right now.
And one thing too, Jake, is something that I've always noticed, unless you're Aaron Donald, JJ Watt, insert future Hall of Famer here. Defensive line, especially defensive tackle, feels like it takes about a year to kind of get the weight under your belt. No matter what you weigh, no matter what your muscle mass is, sometimes you got to play grown man football to start playing grown man football on your own self, and I'm not saying Justice Terry won't make an impact. I'm not saying Justice Terry won't be within the rotation. I'm not saying, he won't make plays as a freshman. I'm just saying sometimes it at that position more than anything, the strength of the interior line is just different at that level than it is in high school. Point blank, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
It's the biggest jump out of any position, even over quarterback.
Yeah.
I would say for defensive line and for offensive line. And so, but yeah, just hearing the reports about the line of scrimmage was interesting. And then what goes along with the line of scrimmage is hearing that Colin Simmons is just the best player on the football team. And that is not surprising to hear. And that is how freakish he is, because this football team has a lot of first round talent on it. And everyone wants to know about Arch Manning, looking every bit of the part of what we expect him to be. The biggest thing I've loved that I've read about him is that he is doing great at taking care of the football. He's not forcing it down the field. He's taking what's there when it's there and then taking his shots.
Man, I think he was just excited to start against Mississippi State. I think that's an outlier.
Or Monroe, Mississippi State.
I'm sorry.
He was much more efficient.
Yeah, UM Monroe. Yeah.
Yeah, where every ball was a deep ball. Every ball was F it. One of my guys are down there.
Yeah. Hey, when you have Isaiah Bond, when you have Matthew Golden, and when you have DeAndre Moore down there, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing.
Which, and wide receiver is kind of the big interesting position to me on the offense right now, because you're getting a good look at what's going to happen if your depth gets tested, because you have DeAndre Moore and you have Ryan Wingo out right now. And the wide receiver group has had good days. They've had bad days. Granted, the defense is look every bit of the part of.
That's where I would make my counter argument is, look who they're going up against in practice. I mean, this is an experienced defensive back group too.
I do think Texas is going to look for one or two wide receivers in the portal this spring. I think they're going to hit tight end for portal. They may or may not look for one experienced offensive line depth piece. And then I still think they'll look for another D tackle as well. I think those will be the primary positions they look at in the spring portal.
And you can always get into depth pieces in terms of corner. That's a deep position. You just need.
You can look at depth pieces at edge, corner. You can look at depth as far as where I think they are going to take someone out of the portal, because I do think they're going to have a fairly big spring portal as far as bringing in quite a few imports. And I'm sure there'll be an export or two, because there always is. But I think they'll be looking at another D tackle, if not two. They'll be looking at one wide receiver, if not two. They'll be looking at a tight end. And then I do think they'll more than likely look for one offensive line depth piece that is versatile, can play different positions along
How are the
line.
linebackers looking, Jake? Any reports there?
Everything. It just stacked is how I would say. Bo Barnes got big recognition. Now, granted, that's 3s on 3s, so he's not going against the 1s. But apparently he had a big scrimmage. Anthony Hill's Anthony Hill.
No matter who your competition is.
Yeah, and Bo Barnes, who we talked about whenever we were doing our recruiting podcast, about how he's a guy we were both excited about, especially when you look at his film. I don't know if he'll play much this year, but a guy that will definitely look good very quickly. Ty Anthony Smith looks good. Anthony Hill is Anthony Hill. He's on a pitch clock. He's not going to be playing a ton during the spring. Yeah. He shouldn't be.
Leona LaFau, same way.
Leona LaFau is just the most all-around linebacker on the team. But Brad Spence is a guy I'm starting to get excited about, because they're saying he looks really solid in coverage, and that's not something they were necessarily that he's a more all-around linebacker than they thought they were getting. And a guy that is probably going to force his way on the field. When you start hearing about depth pieces are so good that they're going to force their way into getting snaps, that's when you know you have a really solid football team. And the offense is still winning practices, and the defense is getting the best of the offense plenty of times too. And that's what I want to hear out of spring. I don't want to, last year we kind of heard about the defense whipping the offense a lot. And that we see now why. Yeah. I think the defense, I'm pretty confident the defense is going to be really good next year. So to hear the offense, especially with, some key pieces missing, is looking like they're competing at a high level with them and winning some practices, that's pretty promising to me.
And one thing, Jake, that I love about Steve Sarkisian, we've seen it every year. I don't care if it goes from year one to the complete roster turnover that we had from year one to year two, fixing the quarterback position. He said, first thing I got to do, I got to get some big bodies. We got to get SEC ready. And so he got some big bodies. Second thing he did was bring in a quarterback. Third thing is that he started implementing his system and his scheme and getting execution. And then all of a sudden we start seeing playoffs. What was the 2 playoff games where Texas struggled and then lost? Because in my opinion, they just weren't as physical as the other team when it came to that. And one thing that I'm hearing, Jake, is all reports are pointing to this is a much more physical offseason that we've seen, whether that be offensive or defensive, and just this team is really focusing on the physicality aspect of the game. We've got the speed. We've had the Xavier Worthies. We've had the Isaiah Bonds. We've had the Matthew Goldens, the Jaden Blues. We've had the speed aspect. Now let's start getting some physicality in there and moving people back off the ball.
Yeah, hearing that this is a more physical football team than last year, not as mature, which means there's probably just some penalties, some stupid things that are going on, or blown assignments here or there, more than what the coaching staff would like. Granted, this coaching staff holds a very high standard, but hearing the physical side of things is very promising, especially along the offense. You know, the offensive line is not going to be as good at pass protection this year. They're just not. I don't think a lot of people realize how elite that offensive line was at pass protection, because a lot of sacks were on the quarterback. That was Quinn's biggest fault. It's not a shot at Quinn saying he wasn't a good quarterback. His number one issue was self-sacking. That is his number one problem as a quarterback, more than deep shots, more than anything.
He was also hampered by injury way more than we knew at the time that he was
the whole season.
Yeah. I mean, whether it be lower body, his ankle, whether that be his oblique or what have you, he did not have the mobility that he had in previous seasons, but it did show in the sack column. And unfortunately that got put on the offensive line.
Yeah. In a lot of time, it would be like, in the Georgia game where people say Kelvin Banks gave up, it's the one he gave up 1 sack in that game, legit, but there was another one where it was not on Kelvin Banks, and it annoyed me. They were trying to blame him for it, but and that is going to be the trade-off, right? The offensive line this year is not going to be as good at pass protection as last year, but you have a quarterback who's going to be much more mobile and much better at making off script plays, good or bad. I do think there'll be a little caveat with that at times. But on the flip side, I think this offensive line is undoubtedly going to be a better run blocking unit. And that's going to be really important, because the inability to run the football is what lost the games to Georgia and is what lost the game to Ohio State, because they had to lean too heavily on just trying to throw the football. And that is hard to do against when you are one dimensional against a top level defense in the country. You're not going to win many football games in those top tier matchups.
We saw that with Notre Dame in the national championship against Ohio State. They're one dimensional in terms of only being able to run the ball. They had no passing, and so
it made game planning very easy and
very easy.
I think Ohio State had to feel very confident going into that Texas game on the defensive side of the football, especially just because they go, Georgia was able to stop the run, and that made this offense not able to score. And then, you have the dogs to do it, and Ohio State did that. And granted, Texas's offense did have some good success moving the ball at times. But when you can't run the football, guess what's really hard? To score in the red zone.
Yeah.
And that was an issue in the Ohio State game, and that was an issue in the Georgia games.
I mean, Jack Sawyer, fumble return for a touchdown. Yeah. It was a goal line stand,
I think this will be a much better red zone team.
And that also points to physicality. Again, to circle back to the original point of how this conversation got started, is you have to have that physicality. You've got to be able to move the line of scrimmage 1 or 2 yards and allow your running back an opportunity to make a play. To me, your goal line running back is only as good as the push that he gets from the offensive line. Saquon Barkley can get stuffed behind the New York Giants offensive line. You put him behind the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, he sets NFL records as the best running back in the league. So 1, 2, 3 yards of push is a world of difference to elite running backs. And you've got some pretty elite running backs in your backfield with CJ Baxter, with Trey Wisner, and some, also now you've got why am I blanking on the baby rhino?
Gibson.
Yeah. Christian Clark also getting, but the point is you've got some talent, you got some dogs in the backfield. Let's allow them to showcase their ability with some good pushes on the offensive line. You got to get that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the run game's going to look like, because I think it's going to be more explosive, and I think it's going to be better. And when Texas was at their best last year is when you could run the football. And I think the same goes with Arch Manning, because that threat of a play action deep bomb, that is going to be a real thing for the Texas offense this last year. And that's a facet of the offense that was missing under Quinn Ewers that will be a strength for Arch Manning. There's things that Quinn will do better than what Arch does. There's going to be things that Arch does better than what Quinn did. And the deep ball is going to be probably the biggest thing that is a big improvement. And that does open up a lot of things. That said, the deep ball is best opened up by being able to run the football. And I think Texas is going to be able to do that much better. And we're going to find out very early on. Now, game one isn't going to determine whether they are a good running football team, especially when it's going to be the offensive line's first start together. But if they run the football well against Ohio State week 1, I'm going to be saying some dangerous things on that podcast that evening.
Yeah. Jake, NFL draft is coming up in terms not this week, obviously next week, next Thursday on the 24th. Who even has the number 1 pick? Is it the Titans? Titans have the number 1 pick this year? Who is it? Why am I blanking on who has the number 1 pick?
Is it because it was such a cluster to see who had it? I think it's the Titans.
Titans?
No, it's the Giants, isn't it?
No, they're like number 3.
I'll pull it up. You continue on.
They will be on the clock, whoever it is. In terms of Texas Longhorns in the first round, we've seen Matthew Golden stock.
Yeah, Titans.
Okay.
Titans.
I was 51% confident on that.
Titans, then Browns.
Titans, Browns, and then Giants, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So we've seen Matthew Golden's stock rise. We've seen Isaiah Bond's stock drop for various reasons, especially his recent legal trouble. Kelvin Banks has kind of been up in the air if you're following mock drafts. For us, Jake, he's a top 5, top 10 pick, easy. But in terms of Longhorn draft day, has anything changed in your aspect of projected rounds, guys rising, guys dropping? For me, the biggest dropper is Isaiah Bond. I don't know where he's going to fall. He may go undrafted at this point. I just don't know about legal issues. A lot of teams try to stay clear of that. But what's kind of your what's your mindset with that?
I'm very curious to see where Quinn ends up going. There's just I've seen him mocked all over the place, and I still wouldn't be surprised for a team to jump up and take him way earlier than anyone expects. So all it takes is one team to fall in love with him. But Jahdae Barron is another one whose stock has continued to rise since we've last talked about him. The issue is pretty much everyone whose stock has risen or fallen has been someone that we kind of predicted that was going to happen with, other than maybe trying to think. I'm blanking right now. Right tackle Cam Williams.
Yeah.
Where I think he might be going a little lower than he probably expected. I think the reason he left is I think he got told you're going to be a first round pick.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. No. And, I really wish he returned for another year, not only because it would have helped out the Texas offensive line tremendously, but because I do think he had first round pick potential. But once teams started, the problem is you get an evaluation, but that evaluation is happening before people dive into your senior year of film, or not senior year, but
in his case, sophomore,
the current year of film, that just happened. And so then just the Kelvin Banks dropping is stupidity. Kuiper's recent draft had him at 18 to Seattle.
I'll be honest with you, Jake. If Kelvin Banks is on the board at 12 and my Dallas Cowboys don't pick him, I'm going to be livid. I don't care who they pick. I'm going to be livid if they pass up on Kelvin Banks, because Kelvin Banks could solve a lot of problems for the Dallas Cowboys.
They have him as the third offensive tackle taken off the board right
you
now.
insert in the third offensive tackle is never 18th in the draft, Jake. The third best offensive tackle in almost any draft ever has gone top 10, top 12.
Yeah, especially in recent history, tackles have
You
their
have to
value
have
has.
you have to have a left tackle. It's the most important position aside from quarterback.
I also still keep reading that Banks could fill in at guard. Why? Why would you put a great left tackle at guard?
Those are lazy journalists, lazy blog reporters, lazy whoever's writing that article.
No, Kuiper is guilty of this one. I was reading it right now. I was checking out his most recent draft where he had him going to 18.
To me, that's just lazy reporting because you're just going based on what other people have said and you're not even basing it off of your own. Because anybody who sits there and watches the film and is like, yeah, Kelvin Banks is a guard, isn't watching. They're just not watching. It's the same crap as I saw with Rashawn Slater whenever he got drafted by the Chargers. I was like, this dude is just a pure solid left tackle. He's now they've moved him over to right tackle. Ooh, sorry. Missed him on the left tackle thing, but they got Joe Alt instead. Okay, great.
Sorry, if Banks goes to like Miami, he should go to right tackle.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'll say that.
Makes sense.
I can't wait for everyone to look really stupid for not taking Banks earlier.
I've already said this in the podcast, but I'll say it again. I did the same thing with Bijan Robinson. I stood 10 toes down that he was a top 10 pick and he was a top 10 talent in the NFL draft, and then the Falcons ended up taking him at number 7 or number 8, whatever draft pick he went with the Falcons within the top 10. And everyone was like, "Well, Bijan could drop as a running back. He could even be second round." I'm like, do you not know who this guy is? Like, are you just not watching film? Like, to me, Bijan's a better running back prospect than Genty is, in my opinion. I don't think Genty falls under any type of skill level that Bijan did.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he had the crazier stats and almost won the hype, but Bijan was at a tougher competition. Also, didn't have a great run blocking offensive line either.
Yeah.
And still looked as crazy as he did. But yeah, I do think there's a good chance Banks still goes top 10 because someone's going to not listen to these people over analyzing.
Yeah, the GMs are pretty good about not looking at.
But I'm ready to blow up on the podcast. I am ready to have my mic clip because I yell so loud into this microphone if he goes.
I know we haven't really discussed what our draft schedule is going to look like come Thursday, Friday of next week, Jake. But we could possibly just do maybe a live react of at least Thursday. Maybe we don't necessarily have to do and Friday, but we'll see. We'll see what
maybe towards maybe depending how late the draft goes. Maybe record after the majority of the first rounds happened.
We could after Dallas picks or something like that. We could just kind of go from there. But anyway, we'll figure it out. And so but yeah, I think Matthew Golden's stock rising, his name being linked to Dallas a lot recently. Him and Tet McKillen from Arizona have been two guys that have been linked to Dallas. So
I would be happy with either.
I'd be happy with either. I'd be now. There's if we're gonna put into all in Cowboys real quick, I wouldn't be upset with Genty, wouldn't be upset with Bolden, wouldn't be upset with McMillan, definitely wouldn't be upset with Banks. If Banks goes to 12, I'm absolutely taking Banks at 12.
Kick Guyton to right tackle where he actually played in college, where I think he could do better.
Yeah, and then get rid of Steele completely.
A lot for I would rather have Guyton at right tackle than Steele.
Yeah,
it would open up a lot for Dallas.
It would. And so yeah, I mean, I there's probably a good portion of guys that I would actually really like. I would like a Jahdae Barron for Dallas at 12. I would not be upset with that.
He might be gone before then.
He very well could be. Yeah, his stock is skyrocketing. So, but with all that said, Jake, I got nothing else on today's episode.
No, I think the NIL talk was fun because it's going to be something we continue to follow, and I'm curious to see the fallout from this.
Yeah.
If it's going to cause some changes.
I feel like if the fallout is bad enough for Nico to where he's going to go and possibly ruin his career, or at least go to a place where he's not going to have nearly the success that he would have had at Tennessee or something along those lines. I don't know if we see another move like that. It might be the last move we ever see like that, or unfortunately, on the other side of it, it could just be the beginning. So who knows?
Yeah, I think it could be a good learning lesson of be careful who's in your camp, because I don't blame it all on Nico
How
until
many
you
times do we have
hear.
to say that, though? Whether it's Kawhi Leonard or,
I think you're always going to have that. You're always going to have this, but I do think this could deter people who are smarter from doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. We will release all 5 of these episodes at noon, Monday through Friday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We will give you a live react, or not a live react, but we'll give you a breakdown of the game tonight against Grand Valley something. I always forget the initials.
University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
Rio Grande Valley. Yeah, there we go.
You'll get it down. You'll get it down after the game, maybe.
After the game, I'm sure I will. Yeah, I also just don't care about that team whatsoever. Unless Texas loses to them, then I will be very upset. But then we will give you a reaction to that game on tomorrow's episode. We'll kind of break it down for you. That might be the only few things we have on the docket, unless something else pops up. But with all that being said, that is Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. This is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns. As always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.